If you want to sell a medical device in the United States, you have to get past a single absolute gatekeeper, the FDA. A lot of manufacturers treat the 510k clearance process like it's a routine administrative chore, just a matter of getting a team to check off a massive pile of boxes. That approach will cause your submission to fail. Today, getting cleared requires you to prove substantial equivalence to a device that is already legally on the market. Proving equivalence requires building a strategic legal argument. You must map out technical comparisons, covering material composition, energy output, and clinical performance, to prove your device is as safe and effective as the predicate. This creates an immediate problem for any device manufacturer. To manage this regulatory burden, you have to decide exactly how to resource the project. The way you staff your submission process, whether you hire internally or bring in outside experts, will directly dictate your timeline to market entry. This flowchart plots the critical phases of an FDA submission. The pipeline starts with predicate selection, moves into testing, hits the eSTAR submission phase, and finally enters substantive review. During the testing phase, you have to generate exact bench and biocompatibility data to prove your device performs exactly as intended. Then, all of that data has to be properly formatted into the FDA's mandatory electronic template, known as eSTAR. If your team submits a file with missing data, or even a basic formatting error, the FDA immediately stops the entire process. They issue what's called a refuse to accept decision. This means your file is rejected and sent back before a reviewer even reads the executive summary. When you get an RTA, or an extensive additional information request later on, the FDA review clock immediately pauses. Running a poorly planned submission strategy costs a company between 90 and 150 days of lost market entry. The standard industry route is to hire a full-time, in-house regulatory affairs team to handle these submissions. The main advantage here is knowledge retention. All the deep institutional data about your product family stays entirely within your company walls. But building that team takes time. You're looking at a 2 to 5 month hiring and training cycle before anyone can even start drafting your 510k. You also take on a fixed salary overhead. You are paying for full-time benefits and burning capital even between active submissions. And if you already have an internal team, they are often fully committed to handling mandatory post-market surveillance and customer complaints. In-house teams give you long-term operational stability, but they lack the immediate agility required when a clearance timeline is urgent. The alternative strategy is to rapidly deploy an external, highly specialized consulting force to manage the entire submission process. This bypasses the hiring cycle completely. You get immediate access to experts who step in, handling everything from predicate strategy to direct FDA liaison work. It also provides financial predictability. You operate on a fixed cost contract without the ongoing burn rate of full-time salaries. The trade-off is when the project ends, the consultants leave. You must ensure a deliberate, structured knowledge handoff to keep internal records complete. The deciding factor is the success rate. Firms like I3CGlobal maintain a 99% substantially equivalent clearance rate for files they submit. Outsourcing trades the slow process of building internal capabilities for speed and a guaranteed reduction in regulatory friction. This comparison matrix highlights what happens when a manufacturer chooses a predicate device purely on baseline functionality, rather than strategic similarity in materials or design. A poorly matched predicate guarantees severe regulatory pushback during the substantive review phase. The FDA will issue a not substantially equivalent, or NSE, ruling, which effectively kills that submission track. That ruling means thousands of dollars spent on specialized bench testing and biocompatibility data are entirely wasted. Once you receive an NSE, you are forced to pivot to de novo pathway, which is significantly more complex and expensive. Avoiding an NSE requires expert strategic framing of your substantial equivalence argument before a single lab test is ever ordered. This quadrant chart plots your internal capacity against your submission urgency to help identify your optimal regulatory strategy. If you are a large enterprise with a predictable, multi-year pipeline of devices, building an in-house team makes the most sense. Up here, we have first-time innovators and startups who are under strict pressure to meet funding timelines. This quadrant also includes developers creating novel surgical devices that lack obvious predicate matches. External consulting is also mandatory for foreign manufacturers who require a U.S. FDA agent to legally enter the market. Plotting your company on this map instantly reveals whether your timeline allows for internal hires or demands external intervention. If your company falls into the high urgency quadrant, your immediate priority has to be submission precision. You can start that process by visiting the official I3CGlobal website and navigating to the Quote Request form. Providing your specific device details will trigger the creation of a comprehensive proposal and a detailed statement of work. Partnering with specialized consultants takes an open-ended submission process and turns it into a predictable, fixed-cost path.